God bless everybody. Shalom. My name is Desmond, aka 1WaytoGodJesus. Based off of John 14:6, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man can get to the Father but by me. Repent, believe the gospel. Now, fear. Fear is a subject that in the Christian sphere is actually either taught very wrong or taught to be a bad thing, or taught that we shouldn't fear God or anything like that. Each and every one of these, in a way, it's kind of wrong sometimes. Some people teach that fear is just a reverence, right? Which the Bible does teach that fear is a reverence, but people say that God will never put you in a place where he actually make you fear him, like in a scared horror movie way, basically, right? But I'm going to sit here and I'm going to explain to you, everybody, what fear truly is and why God instilled this to us as Christians. This is a very important video, so please lock in, please. Now, fear. Fear is not only a reverence, but it is a overwhelming feeling, and which makes you scared and stuff like that. But it's not a bad thing that you get scared during fear. It's what you are afraid of, right? And I'm going to explain this. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 22 and 24. Verse 22, Samuel explains to Saul that God will rather have obedience over sacrifice. I'm just remembering this off the top of my head, so please fact check me again. And then in verse 24, Saul goes and explains why he didn't obey. It was because he feared the people and obeyed their voice. In verse 24, 1 Samuel 15:24, right? Which directly links that fear and obedience go hand in hand. And we'll see this subject a lot, right? There are more chapters. The Pharisees said, they also said they feared the people. A lot of people have said they feared their people and obeyed their voice. Whatever you fear, you will obey, basically. We see this if we use a worldly example, or we use an example like a parable, like in horror movies, right? Or any movie in general where people have a gun to their head. You can use a horror movie, you can use a show like Snowfall, you can use anything, like any worldly example of people having guns to their head in general, right? They do whatever that person says, because when they have a gun to their head, they're in a place of submission. They're scared, right? So whatever you actually fear, you submit to, you obey it, right? Because you want to preserve your life. And it's not even always just in a life preserve. Actually, it is most of the time in a life preserving way, and the Bible goes to that too. But the Lord's mercy is from everlasting to everlasting to those who also fear him. And this is what it says in Psalm 103. Chapter verse 17, if I remember right? But we can see that fear goes past being a reverence when Jesus says in Matthew 10:28, fear not them which can kill the body, but rather fear him that can kill the soul and the body in hell. And the only one that can kill the soul and body in hell is the Lord. It's God. It's our Father in heaven. It's Jesus, right? We'll get to that, but I'm just saying in general, the only way that you could actually have somebody kill your body and soul is like that, right? Now, Hebrews 12:28, the Bible word for word says, wherefore we, receiving a kingdom which cannot be moved, let us have grace whereby we may serve God acceptably with reverence and godly fear. For our God is a consuming fire, which shows that reverence and godly fear are two separate things. Godly fear is our obedience to him. And the reason why our godly fear is obedience to him, is because this theme is going to be repeated so much through the Bible, is that obedience is a very important thing to God. And if we do not actually simply just listen and actually want to obey him, then the author of our salvation, which is Jesus, will not be perfected in us. It says that in Hebrews 5:9. It says, and he, being made perfect, he became the author of eternal salvation unto all them who obey him, which shows that our obedience is linked straight to our fear, which is mind-blowing, honestly. I came to the faith through fear. I almost killed myself, and I felt myself going to hell and stuff like that. And I felt myself like feeling all these demons and stuff. And I was too afraid to actually do it because I felt like, hey, I could have went to hell. I dropped the knife, and then that's when I felt the overwhelming rush. 2020, God said either stay home stay home and stay with me and listen to me, or I was going to go out and I was going to actually try to have sex with 2 different women at the same time, and I was going to do this, but I couldn't do that because God said if I go out and do that, I would go out and I would die. I would catch COVID and die. Or I stay home. And I remember hearing that voice very clearly, fear. And I obeyed that because I was afraid that if I actually did it, that the Lord would actually, strike me down. Because that's what basically he said to me. I obeyed him because I feared him. Now, is that what people would say? Well, that's an unhealthy relationship. Well, we feared our parents, right? Like we feared our mom and our dad giving us a whooping for doing a bad thing. We feared the consequences of the law if we ever get caught, doing bad things or going to jail or things like that. Which is why it's like I say, fear and obedience go hand in hand. Now we can try to be sneaky or anything like that, but it still doesn't change the fact that we obey what we fear. So I hope this blessed somebody. God bless everybody, and shalom.